Good morning, members. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. Welcome to the Bills Committee on Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill. Let's get started. First agenda item, election of Deputy Chairman. The Secretariat issued a notice before the meeting informing members that by the close of nominations, one valid nomination for the deputy chairmanship had been received. The member nominated is Mr. Tang Fei. He is nominated by me, and the nomination is seconded by Ms. Doreen Kong. According to paragraph 8, bracket D of Appendix 4 to the House Rules, if any valid nomination is received for the office of deputy chairman, the committee may decide whether there is a need to elect a deputy chairman. Do members agree to elect a deputy chairman? Do we all agree? All right. Mr. Tang Fei, welcome to the Bills Committee as in the capacity of a deputy chairman. We're going to have a meeting with the administration. Let us first invite representatives from the government as well as from the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals to join us. Good morning. We welcome government representatives as well as representatives from the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals to attend the meeting. Please be seated. Dr. Wai-kwok is the member responsible for this bill. I will ask him to brief member on this bill. Understand that the Institute has prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Please brief us on the content of the PowerPoint presentation. Dr. Low, please. Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to brief members of this Bills Committee on the bill. The purpose of the bill is to give HKIQEP the legal status of a statutory body so that HKIQEP can continue to exist and that it can only be dissolved with another ordinance enacted by the Legislative Council. We want the HKIQEP to become like other statutory bodies like the HKIE, the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, under one country, two systems. Different professional bodies develop their own qualification assessment systems. They help to accredit different degree programs. Apart from the HKIE from the engineering sector, we also have the Institute of Surveyors from the surveying sector. We also have the Institute of Architects. I declare that I am the consultant of the HKIQEP, but there is no monetary relationship between the institute and myself. I work as a volunteer. On the 25th of March this year, we discussed this bill and I got the support from members of the panel on environmental affairs. The law draftsman also issued a certificate indicating that this bill is This bill in conformity with the basic law as well as the general form of Hong Kong legislation. The President of this Council agreed that we can proceed with the bill, and I got the consent from the Chief Executive. And in June, the bill was gazetted. On the 4th of July, at the Council meeting, the bill received its first and second reading. This is an important milestone. On the 5th of July, at the House Committee meeting, upon members' request, we set up this Bills Committee. I recommend this bill to members of this committee. I hope I will continue to get members' support in the following procedures. Chairman, as you said, President of the HKIQEP will brief us on the qualification system and the consultation conducted by the Institute in relation to getting support from the community. When we get to the clause-by-clause scrutiny of this bill, Mr. Albert So, lawyer from the HKIQEP, will brief members on the details. The Bills Committee made inquiries in relation to the legal and drafting aspects of the bill. Legal representatives from the Institute will respond to the inquiries, and amendments will be proposed by the Institute. Thank you, Chairman. I so submit. I welcome any questions from members. Let me first welcome the President of the Institute to brief us on the bill. President, please brief us on the bill. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to brief members on the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill here. This bill is to give the statutory status to the Institute to address climate change. President Xi said that China will strive to achieve the peak of carbon emissions before 2030 and carbon neutrality before 2060. The dual carbon goal is an important commitment made by the country, and this has laid out clear direction and strategies to establish a green, low-carbon and circular economy in the future. Hong Kong has also been promoting efforts to address climate change. The SAR government in October 2021 announced the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan 2050, striving to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% before 2035 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. We expect that the demand for environmental professionals in Hong Kong will become increasingly strong. In order to seize the new growth momentum brought by the low-carbon transformation, Hong Kong needs to improve the professional qualification structure and continuous professional development of environmental professionals. We have to train up the younger generation to become professionals so that we can enrich the environmental professional talent pool. The Institute was established back in 2015. Our members are from the public sector, corporate sector, as well as existing environmental professional institutions. The Institute was set up to address different challenges and turn challenges into opportunities for Hong Kong as well as the GBA. The Institute aims to transform Hong Kong into a center of excellence in professional environmental services and develop the environmental services industry as one of the pillar industries of Hong Kong. We want to create more quality jobs for our younger generations so that they can pursue green and sustainable career. And this will help strengthen Hong Kong's strengths in professional industries. In order to develop Hong Kong into a center for nurturing environmental professionals, we have established a qualification assessment system as well as a registration system. We are going to strengthen environmental tertiary education and nurture cross-disciplinary environmental professionals. The establishment of the institute is to promote, develop, and maintain a qualification system covering the professional assessment of 6 environmental areas, which are environmental science, management and policy, air, noise, environmental impact assessment and hazard assessment, waste, and water. We establish the qualification assessment system, and we ask that environmental professionals should be degree holders in the environmental field with post-qualification experience in the field. Since 2015, more than 1,200 participants have taken part in our closed-book open examinations. A lot of them, they engage in businesses in the environmental industry in the GBA or in Hong Kong. Over 660 members from our institute are in the industry. Qualified environmental professionals play an important role in meeting the current and future environmental expertise needs, supporting the development of the environmental industry, establishing professional qualification assessment, awarding ethics management, related degree review, and so on, and maintaining a register of suitably qualified environmental professionals in Hong Kong. The institute is recognized by different government departments, including the Engineering and Associated Consultants Selection Board. And we are endorsed by the board as one of the qualification requirements for consultants to engage expertise as professionals in environmental studies. Our professional members certify noise testing report under the Noise Control Ordinance. And the Environmental Protection Department recognizes us as we have launched a certification system for air and noise modeling professionals. 45 entities have already pledged to support the qualified environmental professionals in their recruitment of environment-related positions, and they encourage their staff members to obtain the institute qualification. The purpose of this bill is to give the institute the status of an incorporated body so that it will be a legal entity with perpetual succession, and that it will only be dissolved by another statute passed by the Legislative Council. This will ensure the existence and independence of the institute in the long run. Like other professional bodies in Hong Kong, such as the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors, and the Hong Kong Institute of Architects. We made reference to the relevant legislations as we drafted the bill. We also consulted relevant stakeholders. The EPD as well as the EEB have all along supported our development of the qualification system and the requirements we impose on environmental professionals. We see the importance of having this qualification assessment system in order to address the challenges caused by climate change. We are going to see an increasing demand for skilled professionals in the field. We want to ensure that the bill will be widely supported by different sectors. Since November last year, we have consulted different stakeholders from various sectors, and we've got positive responses and support from them. During the consultation exercise, there were many constructive exchanges of views. During the consultation process, we got letters from different organizations expressing their support for the bill. Apart from the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors, and the Hong Kong Institute of Architects, we got the support from the business sector and other sectors. 7 academic institutions also support our development of the qualification system. I'm not going to name the institutes or the organizations one by one, but you can see from the list here that we got the support from think tanks, environmental protection organizations, as well as private companies. The bill does not relate to public expenditure, political structure, or the operation of the government. The bill conforms to the form of bills in accordance with the rules or procedures of the Legislative Council, as well as the general form of Hong Kong legislation. We also got the certificate issued by the law draftsman of the Department of Justice. In relation to the legislative timetable, on the 25th of March this year, we consulted the panel on environmental affairs on the bill. On the 24th of May, we got the written consent from the Chief Executive to introduce the bill to the Legislative Council. On the 14th of June and the 21st of June, the bill was published in the Gazette for the first and second time. And on the 4th of July, the bill received its first and second reading. Today we have the first meeting of this Bills Committee. We value members' views on the bill. We hope that we will get your support in the remaining procedures of the legislative exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman Cheung, for your briefing. Once again, let me thank Dr. Wai-kwok for his endless efforts to drive environmental protection. Now that we have been presented with this bill, I don't think it is an easy task. It is important for Hong Kong to develop the environmental professional services industry. In attendance for our meeting today, we have Mr. D.C. Cheung from the EEB as well as his team. I won't go through the list of attendees. Just want to check with Mr. Cheung if he has got anything to add to the briefing. Thank you, Chair. All the time, we have been supporting the sustainable development of environmental professionals so that we can enhance the standards and gain credibility. We'll be happy to listen to your views concerning the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cheung. I now open the floor to members for your questions on the policies. For those members who wish to ask questions, please press the Request to Speak button. As far as time management is concerned, for the first round of Q&A, 4 minutes each for your Q&A. So for policy-related issues, you can fill your questions to the Hong Kong IQEP as well as the administration. Dr. Low can also assist to answer the questions. Let me read out the order of members who wish to ask questions. First of all, Professor Chen Wing-kwong, Mr. Tony Che, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Andrew Lam, and Mr. Lam Sen Keung. So far, 5 members for the first round. 4 minutes each for your Q&A. Professor Chen, please. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank Dr. Low for introducing this bill. And for the bill, I think I have to set out to say that I support the bill. By granting a legal status to the institute, it can further enhance its professional status, and we can better train up our environmental professionals. This is important for us to cope with the challenges arising from the climate change, and it will have a positive impact. I have a few questions. First of all, for the IQEP, I want to know whether its functions and objectives will undergo any changes before and after becoming a statutory body. And will you be able to do more in terms of environmental protection? Are you able to come up with quantifiable indicators? Say, for example, how many more people will get qualified by you? And what about your targets concerning continuous professional development? That's the first question. Second question, after becoming an incorporated body, how are you going to liaise and cooperate with government departments? Will there be a standing mechanism for communication so that the Institute can better serve the interests of Hong Kong in relation to environmental protection? And then in relation to Clause 8 of the bill, the Council will be responsible for the running of the Institute. But then if the Institute does something contrary to the interests of Hong Kong, and if the Council turns a blind eye to it, can Hong Kong government intervene? And what about the Constitution? Is there a requirement to say that your members, in particular the Council members, have the duty to embrace one country, two systems? If not, will the administration consider having this inserted so as to avoid members doing anything that is contrary to public expectation? I think altogether there are 4 questions. So I'll give the floor to the IQEP, the powers of the Council, etc. In relation to Q3, I will leave it to the PS, Mr. Zheng. Institute. Well, I'd like to thank Professor Chen for his questions. After becoming an incorporated body, will be even more active and will encourage more young people to take part in our accreditation system so that they become a qualified environmental professional member. That's our long-term objective. Well, in fact, we've seen that there has been a positive growth in the membership. And this year we have a record number of members despite not having the bill yet to be enacted. Almost 200 candidates set our examination, other than the 1,200 that I mentioned earlier on. So I will continue to work hard. As to your question regarding our liaison or relationship with the EPD, well, in fact, all the time the relationship has been a close one, and whenever there have been any legal exercises or legislative exercises like proposed amendments to laws, we have given our views, and in fact we were able to certify the air and noise modeling professionals. So in this way we can expedite the work involved. Well, there was a question concerning the need to assure us that members will uphold the national security. Well, basically, we are very stringent in vetting the membership of our institute. And in fact, within the bill, if it is found that anybody has breached any laws of Hong Kong, will be revoking the membership. And within our bylaws, this will be stated. So the bylaw will take care of that, right? And then Mr. Zhang, 2 questions here. First of all, Mr. Freeman Zhang, the president, took the question about the liaison with the EEB. What is your take? And then if the council is to do anything that is not proper, what about the government's role? Will there be any intervention? Thank you, Chair. Well, as the president has said, the NSL is most important. Everybody has to abide by the law. As to the council's case, well, they are a professional body. It appears that they haven't sort of given any role to the government within the bill. So it's really up to them to see how this relationship is to be handled. On our part, we have an open mind, Mr. Zhang. Well, if the government has got any environmental policies, they will be one of the consultees, right? Indeed, the EPD has been keeping a close relationship or close liaison with them. And in fact, the director of EP has issued a letter to render his support. I think Dr. Low would like to add to the answers, right? Indeed, Professor Chen, our colleague, asked a question. That is the objectives of the Hong Kong IQEP. And then he would like to know whether there has been or there will be any changes to the objectives before and after the introduction of the bill. The President made it clear. Our objectives are clear. With the introduction of the bill, we'll be given a boost in doing more in driving the development of our environmental professional services. As to the quantifiable indicators, well, I think it is a fluid situation. The President himself gave some figures. I myself witnessed the developments like the arrangements for holding examination. It is a good sign that so many candidates came to sit for the examination, even without the legal entity status. So it is in line with the overall direction of environmental protection. We might not be able to give answers to Professor Chen's specific question, but then with the enactment of the bill, we are sure that more people will be attracted to join the institute. What is important is to attract more young people to get involved in environmental protection. And then for the need to recognize national security, I think it goes without saying. Well, we also work hard for certain parts of national security. National security includes environmental security as well as energy security. Now, the bill itself cannot cover everything in relation to the details of the business of the institute, but I'm sure the constitution of the institute can embrace that. Thank you, Dr. Low, for your supplementary remarks. Next, Mr. Tony Chen. As a professional, I always watch the work of environmental protection, and I'm interested in that. For the establishment and the objectives of the institute, I render my support. Still, there is something I want to know more. First of all, a question for the president of the institute. Why is it that he would like the institute to become a statutory body? Is it because without the status, their functions will be obstructed? Or is it because he thinks that by gaining such a status, the institute can become better? Another question is for the administration. I know that many similar bodies would get the status of a statutory professional body. When it comes to picking which one to support, I want to know if the administration has got any criteria to base its decision on. And then the president of the institute said that a lot of work has been carried out, like consulting the stakeholders, relevant professional bodies, etc. In the course of consultation, and in fact from the PPT, I found that many of them wrote a supporting letter. I want to know whether in the course of consultation you gathered certain suggestions or views that you will follow up. Do they have any suggestions that could lead to an improvement of your institute? On the other hand, I've got some comments to make. From your website, I have read your constitution, but then you have only got the English version. I do look forward having a Chinese version because in Hong Kong we are bilingual. And then for your constitution, I think you have got something like the bylaws. I want to know whether in future they will be given the legal status as well, whether the two will be combined into one or whether they will remain as two different documents. I've noticed that generally for professional bodies, they have bylaws spelled BYLAWS, but you have BYE. Is there any special reason for your choice? So that's my question. And finally, I've got another question. For many professional bodies that are incorporated, they will stipulate that only their own members can use a particular title, but it seems that this is absent from your bill. Does it mean that others would be permitted to use a particular job title, or whether it is not allowed and they will attract a civil liability? And then the last question is for the administration. With the incorporation of the Hong Kong IQEP, does it mean that the administration will give recognition to all their members and they will be regarded as having an environmental professional qualification? What about those admitted or recognized previously?
6 questions asked. I think these questions need to be addressed. How about we have the administration respond to the last question? After the incorporation of the institute, how will the government give its recognition to the institute, and how will you deal with other professional bodies? The Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill is raised by Dr. Wai-kwok, and the bill is to grant the institute the status of a legally recognized organization so that it can become a professional body with perpetual succession and existence. This is a private member's bill according to the rules of procedures. If this bill is endorsed by the Bills Committee and it does not concern any political matters, operation of the government or public expenditure, and that with the consent of the chief executive, we'll be able to proceed with the legislative exercise of the bill. We are happy to support the sustainable development of environmental professionals in Hong Kong. We want to enhance the credibility of the institute, and therefore we made a declaration in relation to the bill. If I understand correctly, I believe Mr. Tony Chei's question is not about this. Mr. Chei asked for the government's view on the gaining of a legal status for other professional bodies. We value the views of different professional bodies. If we get such views, we will look into them with other government departments and bureaus. If it is a proposal raised by a LegCo member, we will see if the proposal concerns public expenditure or the operation of the government. The institute concerned has developed a qualification system for professional assessment in 6 environmental areas, and we accept that. President of the institute just now mentioned that there is a qualification system in relation to the professional assessment in 6 environmental areas, including air, noise, and other areas. Chairman, I believe you get what I mean. I want to know the stance of the government. The institute will become a statutory professional body in the future. Does that mean members of the institute will be recognized by the government in the sense that they can bid government projects, or they might even be recruited by the government as professionals? Are there other overseas professional bodies or recognized bodies in Hong Kong that are given recognition by the government? I believe members of the institute are concerned about this. There might be some professional bodies recognized by the government. Say, Chairman, you are an engineer yourself, and as a member of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, you might be recognized by the government to provide consultant service. Would members of these professional bodies be given the recognition in relation to their qualifications by the government? Well, to put it simply, the institute will become a statutory professional body. Will the government recognize this institute as the only institute with the relevant professional qualifications? I believe the answer is no. But say there might be a government project that requires the participation of professionals. Will you consider having the institute as one of the recognized bodies to take part in large-scale government projects? All I can say is that from the government's perspective, in relation to appointment of civil servants, we look at the job duties of the civil servants. We do not only look at the relevant education qualifications. we select the most suitable candidates to take up civil servants posts. The membership of the institute is currently not one of the required or entry requirements for candidates who would like to take up posts in the civil service. What you're saying is that the institute, after being incorporated, if members of the institute fulfill certain requirements, they may apply to take part in government projects, but they have to fulfill the relevant requirements and qualifications. They also have to have the relevant experience. Is that right? Well, strictly speaking, our requirements for candidates will not change. We have plenty of time. Perhaps I'll invite the Institute to respond to the rest of the questions raised by Mr. Che. One of the questions is about the membership of the Institute. What are the basic requirements? I mean, what are the conditions or requirements or the considerations you have when you decide to have the Institute incorporated? Also, have you got any views from different sectors or organizations during the consultation exercise? Thank you, Chairman. After the incorporation of the Institute, we hope to lay down a clearer path for our young people so that they can pass the exam and obtain the qualifications to help promote the environmental industry. We hope to offer more quality job opportunities to our future and younger generations. Our qualification system will be recognized, and we hope our younger generation can devote themselves into the environmental industry to pursue a green and sustainable career. During the consultation exercise, apart from written submissions, we organized 2 consultation sessions and engagement events. A lot of the participants expressed their support for the bill. We hope that there can be more cooperation opportunities. Some organizations want to enhance the mutual recognition of relevant qualifications so that more environmental professionals can provide their services in the sector. These are the views we got during the consultation. Administration, anything to add? The government has all along been nurturing environmental professionals. We have tertiary institutes offering degree programs to nurture environmental professionals. In terms of training, the EPD has been working with relevant professional bodies to provide graduates with internship opportunities to help them obtain relevant qualifications. For instance, the EPD has been working with the HKIE for 25 years to provide graduates with internship opportunities to help them obtain engineering qualifications and boost their chances of getting recruited in the engineering sector. Well, we've spent quite a lot of time on the questions asked by Mr. Tony Che. For the rest of the questions, I have jotted them down. Perhaps we can let the other members speak first, and then we'll come back to your questions. Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Chairman. I support the incorporation of the Institute. I think this will offer another progression pathway for the younger generation. For young people, they think it's cool to join the environmental industry. Environmental protection is one of the important values. If we can incorporate these values with their career, I think this will be very encouraging for our young people. And this is also a positive message for the education sector. Slide 5 of the PowerPoint presentation mentions that since 2015, 1,200 people have participated in the closed book open exams held by the Institute. Are these exams organized by the Institute, or do you entrust other bodies such as the Hong Kong Exam and Assessment Authority to hold these exams? The HKEAA does a very good job in this regard. I understand the Institute is professional, but you might be expecting more people taking part in these exams, and the administrative procedures involved could be very complicated. If there are people who question the credibility or reliability or impartiality of the exams, problems may arise. So will you continue to adopt the existing practice in holding such exams?
And then in clause 4 of your bill, it sets out clearly the objects of the institute. You talk about to promote, develop, and maintain a qualification system. And then for clause 5, that's about the powers of the institute. I think this is to facilitate the members rather than taking it further in relation to establishing the professionalism of its members concerning environmental issues, because you don't have any disciplinary functions or powers. So after someone has set the examination, etc., the membership will be kept. And what will happen if a member commits a crime? Under what circumstances will a member get revocation of his membership? So I don't see anything related to that. But of course, I'm not sure whether anything is contained in the constitution of the institute. If there is, then would the bill include references to the constitution so as to incorporate that in the bill? That is to set out the powers, the disciplinary powers of the institute, or rather you say that there's no need for that. And then what about the council's powers? Again, you don't mention the powers concerning the disciplinary action against your members. Thank you. 2 questions here. First of all, the proper examination and whether it is credible, and in what ways are you trying to establish the credibility of your open examination, and how do you ensure that your members will be of good character? For the examination, many of our members are professors at tertiary institutions. They have done a lot to help us out, like the provision of a venue for the examination. So for the first question, it is arranged by you yourself rather than via a third party. We did consider that option, but then the cost implication is a factor we have to consider. And then for the time being, if we have 200 candidates each time, it will still be feasible. And we'll try to arrange for 2 examinations within a year. I think in this way we can meet the demand of the market. So for the time being, we'll still be taking care of it. But then Mr. Tang Fei asked as to how you're going to keep the professionalism. You said that some of your members are with the tertiary educational institutions, so can they be responsible for the assessment? Well, for the time being, we're still working within our own framework, and we have a committee taking care of professional assessment. And we have Professor Lau responsible for the assessment. Yes, he enjoys high respect, so he's responsible for setting the exam paper, etc. So he plays a very active role. And then there was a question about the disciplinary matters pertaining to members. In our constitution, we do set out clearly as to our requirements in relation to the conduct and the ethics of our members. So if members are involved in anything, we can set up a disciplinary panel to look into the act and to see whether it contravenes our constitution. Strictly speaking, we can revoke the membership in case a member is involved in anything. And for the examination, we have an appeal mechanism as well, and we have an appeal committee to look into that. Well, I think probably Dr. Low can add to the answers. Dr. Low and myself are members of the Hong Kong IE. The ordinance itself may not give such details, but then the Constitution, or as President Zheng has said, we have a disciplinary board, and there are also code of practice or code of conduct to deal with such issues. Or say, for example, if a member fails to reach the standards required. Dr. Low, anything to add? Chair, I think you have already taken words out of my mouth. That's my experience as well. I think for statutory professional bodies, I'm sure each and every of them define clearly the requirements of membership. Some will hold a professional examination. Others may have professional assessment, but it will be a very clear sort of arrangement. And then quality assurance will certainly be covered as well. But then for this bill, the purpose or the object of the bill is similar to that of others. That is, it seeks to get a statutory status as to the actual operating details that will be covered by the Constitution. Just now, Mr. Tony Chair asked a question. That is, what were the views of other professional bodies when they were consulted? I think someone has mentioned the mutual recognition of qualification. Some institutions are eager and anxious to achieve mutual recognition of qualification. They want to know whether that can be covered by the bill as well. But then the bill, of course, cannot do that. But I'm sure once the body has become incorporated, this will be part of the work to be carried out. And then there was a question as to the changes before and after the introduction of the bill. Well, as a result of gaining such a status, we can talk about mutual recognition of qualification, including mutual recognition of status with professional bodies outside Hong Kong. So it isn't just a matter for the future operation of the institute, and the Constitution itself will certainly cover such elements. Thank you, Dr. Low. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. For me, in relation to efforts to drive the development of environmental professional services, I think nobody would query my efforts. And then for the Hong Kong IQEP, it has already gained a certain degree of recognition among these members of the sector. But still, I have to look at the bill itself. I've done some homework for the format of the bill when compared with the ordinance of recognized professional bodies. I think it is almost the same. But then, for us to deliberate on the bill, the form itself has remained so for decades. So first of all, the original constitution of the Institute will be given recognition. Other members have asked questions in that direction. I have this suggestion to facilitate our deliberation. I think we will be interested in issues like the following. That is, how do you assess your membership applications, and how do you take care of disciplinary matters? What is the role of the council? So please provide copy of your constitution to facilitate our deliberation of the bill, because your constitution will automatically be taken up under the bill. It doesn't mean that your constitution cannot be amended. I'm quite aware of that. So that's my main request. In addition, we are not talking about a bill to provide for the registration of professionals. Therefore, I don't think it is right for us to talk about the future policies of the administration. That is, whether there will be exclusion. By exclusion, to me, it means that only when you hold membership of this institute would you be able to carry out certain work or take up a certain job. I think there is still a long way to go before that stage is reached. Otherwise, there will be endless discussion. To me, the bill itself is clear. Instead of being a company status, it will become an incorporated body. I think it is as simple as that. Please ratify me if my understanding is not correct. So Mr. Lam has raised 2 points or 2 questions. So President Zheng from the Institute, your take. Well, for our bill, it is sort of modeled on other professional bodies, so the form is quite similar. The operation of the council can be found in the Constitution, and the Constitution itself is in the public domain in the sense that you can find it on the website. But if you're interested, we can provide a copy. I agree entirely with Mr. Lam. We aren't talking about registration system here. Basically, instead of being registered as a company, we would like to seek the incorporation. Well, the Constitution can be found on the website. If anybody is interested to take a look of the Constitution, you can visit the website. Mr. Zheng, if you think that the Constitution is not going to undergo any change before and after the introduction of the bill, we can make reference to the Constitution. But if members may be affected by anything in the Constitution as to whether he will support the bill. Maybe we can have a discussion of that. Another question is about exclusion. So it is said that I think Mr. Lam is right to remind us we are not excluding all other professional bodies by your incorporation. Mr. Lam, something to add?
I asked the Institute to provide the Constitution. If I look it up online, it might take me a lot of time. To avoid having different versions of the Constitution, it is most reliable if we have the Constitution from the Institute or the government. Yes, can the Institute provide the Constitution after the meeting? This will be one of the official documents for this committee. If you provide the Constitution, then we can learn about the details and we can perhaps have relevant discussions about the Constitution afterwards. Yes, so please provide the Constitution after the meeting. Mr. Ambrose Lam. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Tony Che asked why there is a need for the Institute to be incorporated. What I understand is that the incorporation of the Institute will help boost people's confidence in the Institute, and this is also to enhance the reputation of the Institute. I think we do see that recently there were difficulties faced by universities to amend the relevant provisions. It's also hard for the law society to amend the relevant provisions. We need the endorsement of our members as well as the government. So this is just an observation from me. And you can think whether you want to proceed with the legislative exercise. My other concern is about training. Is it the case that people can become members of the Institute by passing the exams? Also, do people have to meet certain criteria in order to take the exams? Do you require them to be degree holders of certain undergraduate programs before they can take the exams? I think environmental protection has become an increasingly important issue. We will see an industry in relation to environmental protection. Will you allow more people to take the exams so that more people can join the industry? Thank you. President, our aim is to enhance the exposure or reputation of the Institute so that different sectors know who they can turn to when they look for environmental professionals. In relation to our assessment system, we require that people who take the exams should be degree holders of certain environmental programs. They don't have to take particular subjects, but oftentimes we see exam candidates being degree holders of programs in the science or engineering fields. We also work with tertiary institutions in rolling out different programs. But currently, we do ask degree holders in the environmental field to take the exams. One follow-up question. I believe lawyers might be interested in joining the environmental industry or have the relevant expertise. Lawyers are degree holders of undergraduate programs. Would you consider allowing lawyers to take your exams? Well, we haven't had any lawyers taking our exams, but if they are interested, they are welcomed to take the exams. So you don't ask candidates who take the exams to have any professional backgrounds. Is that right? As long as they are degree holders of certain undergraduate programs, they can take the exams. Well, there are different pathways for degree holders of undergraduate programs. We don't ask them to have any professional experience. For others, we ask them to have certain experience. So far, I haven't seen any lawyers who are interested in taking our exams. Well, Mr. Ambrose Lam, you may consider taking the exams. You're a lawyer and you may want to obtain the qualification from the institute. Two members have pressed the button to speak, Ms. Elizabeth Quat and myself. Ms. Quat, please. Thank you, Chairman. It was 2 to 3 years ago when I first heard about this proposal. I understand the Institute is dedicated to promoting environmental protection. I was the chairman of the Environmental Affairs panel, and I support the bill. It's not easy to have a private member's bill raised, so I'm happy that we are at this stage of the legislative exercise. We're very close to success. We have to now look at how we can serve as the gatekeeper. With the qualification assessment system developed by the Institute, well, you mentioned that one of the goals is to enhance the reputation of the Institute so that industries know who they can turn to when they look for environmental professionals. How do you maintain the professionalism and credibility of your assessment system? I believe you have your thoughts on how you can step up training and education as well as publicity. You should also have some ideas on how you're going to deal with complaints. Can you share your thoughts with us, please? President. On gatekeeping, I mentioned roughly about our plan. We have a disciplinary panel on our members' conduct and ethics. We have a code of conduct for our members, as we are concerned about their conduct and behaviors. If during the assessment process members find that there is unfairness, they can make use of the appeal mechanism. We made reference to the practice of other professional bodies as we come up with this system. Just now, I mentioned that Professor Alexis Lau can help assure the qualification system. We also have Professor Lam Kin Chi, who helps oversee our appeal mechanism. We ask that members, after obtaining the professional qualifications, they have to pursue further studies so that they can comply with the requirements in relation to continuous professional development. So these are how we ensure the professional qualifications or professionalism of our members. Ms. Kwok, any follow-up questions? I support the bill. Well, Ms. Kwok has been supporting the development of environmental professionals, and she has been working with Dr. Low in this regard. Well, I do hope that this bill can be passed soon. Ms. Doreen Kong. Well, I pressed the button by mistake. Well, do you support the bill? Well, I do support the bill. We have a dozen members sitting on this committee, and they have mostly expressed their support of the bill. We just need to sort out the details. Now it's my turn. In order to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, Hong Kong needs to work hard. There will be some major construction works in Hong Kong, and we have to strike a balance between development and conservation as well as environmental protection. Environmental professionals are going to play an important role in Hong Kong. Environmental industry can be one important industry in Hong Kong. And in order to build this industry, environmental professionals will be crucial. As of today, there are many bodies and organizations in Hong Kong that provide environmental services. A lot of consultancy firms, they engage environmental professionals. Like Hong Kong IE, there is an environmental branch. There are many major construction or engineering works in Hong Kong. And in these projects, environmental impact assessments may have to be carried out, and this involves experts. We have yet to see a professional body to take up this kind of work. Say for Hong Kong IE, we have experts that have the relevant qualifications. We also have environmental protection bodies set up by the business sector. We do have environmental professionals in Hong Kong engaging in such businesses. The incorporation of the institute does not mean that all these other professional bodies or organizations will be excluded. It's just that we are giving the institute a clear legal status, and that when the government implements large-scale construction works, it can perhaps have the help of the institute. We do want to know if the qualification of the institute will be recognized widely. Of course, you are going to ask your members to take exams, and you're going to give them qualifications. There are many professional bodies around the world that have developed a similar qualification assessment system. And a lot of professional bodies, they make reference to the practice of different global professional bodies when setting up a qualification system. My question is, you have quite a number of members in your institute. How many world-class global organizations or bodies which have recognized the qualifications given by the institute? It is important to have the recognition globally. Like Dr. Low said, you're yet a statutory body, and it might be hard for you to have the recognition of global bodies or organizations. So I want to hear from the President whether you have any members who have obtained the qualification status that is widely recognized around the world.
咁其實咧，
Thank you, Chair. As far as the qualification of an institute, we have yet to align with our overseas counterparts. When we devised our assessment arrangements, we did make reference to that of other overseas organizations. If I may raise a point here, I think few professional qualifications would require the prerequisite of having to pass a 3-hour examination. So this is rather unique in our case. Chair, you talked about how we compared with other professional bodies. I believe that with the enactment of the bill, our legitimacy will be greatly enhanced, and I'm sure that would start the ball rolling in relation to mutual recognition of qualifications. During the consultation exercise, many professional bodies did raise this proposal. That is, we should explore the possibility in future. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Other members, any other questions concerning the policies or any suggestions? If not, then we have completed the discussion of the policies. Well, if I may check with our members, do you think that it is necessary for us to invite public views? We heard that there was already a round of public consultation. That's what Dr. Low and what Mr. Zheng told us. But at that time, that was done in the absence of a bill. So, can I check with you? Can we invite written submissions from the committee in relation to the details of the bill, so that the Secretariat can gather them for our reference? Written submissions then. So I will ask our Secretariat to invite public submissions if they have any comments on the bill. If you haven't got other questions, then I suggest that we commence our cross scrutiny. Would it be fine with you, members? Well, in that case, please refer to the text of the bill, namely CB bracket 3538/2024. Would you like to agree with my suggestion that we start with the Chinese version of the bill and then we'll go back to the English version afterwards? In that case, let's take a look of the blue bill and let's adhere to the Chinese version. And then I would like to invite the representative of the Hong Kong IQEP to walk us through the clauses. Would it be Mr. Elvis? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. There are 5 parts with 12 clauses. When we drafted the bill, we already made reference to all the views expressed by the law draftsman of the DFJ. We have also looked at the precedents of other professional bodies. That is, we have made reference to the format as well as the choice of diction when they became statutory bodies. Now, let me walk you through the bill. I would like to highlight the main points. First of all, Clause 1. It sets out the short title. The ordinance may be cited as the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Ordinance. Sorry, I would suggest that please give us the page reference of the blue bill. We are on page 6. Thank you for the reminder, Chair. Clause 2, again on page 6. Clause 2 sets out the definitions. Mrs. So, if you don't mind, when we are in clause-by-clause scrutiny, I would like to pause after each and every clause. Let me check with members if they have got any questions. So, for the long title on page 6, first of all, members, any questions on the long title? No? Then part 1, preliminary, short title. Mr. So, would you like to start all over again? Yes, the preliminary, short title. This ordinance may be cited as the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Ordinance. No questions? All right. Please continue. Clause 2, again on page 6, interpretation. It sets out the terms. Register means the register of members of the Institute kept in accordance with the Constitution. Year means the financial year of the Institute commencing and ending on such days each year in accordance with the Constitution, except that the period from the incorporation of the Institute to 31st of March next thereafter is to be considered as a financial year. No questions? Fine. Please continue. Page 8, Secretary means the honorary secretary of the Institute, appointed under the provisions of the Constitution. General Council means the General Council of the Institute, established under Section 7. Constitution means the Constitution of the Institute, referred to in Section 10 for the time being in force. President means the person referred to as President of the Institute in Section 7, and any person acting as President in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Please continue. Yes, Ms. Kong. Chair. Now for Constitution, I can understand the meaning. It means the Constitution of the Institute. I went to your website. Other than Constitution, you have got bylaws. So I want to know whether Constitution means the Constitution only. Would you like to add your bylaws to your Constitution as well? Your bylaws is well written. Your professional development, etc., etc. Everything can be found under the bylaw. So would you consider that? Can you tell us why Constitution only means Constitution and doesn't include bylaw? Thank you, Ms. Kong. In our Constitution, we set out clearly that the details can be found in the bylaw. Here we mention the Constitution. So our Constitution already mentions the bylaw setting out the final details. Say, for example, what the President referred to, like disciplinary matters, training matters. So that can be found in another document. Ms. Kong means that since you have got the bylaws, would you want to spell it out in the bill? Now you say the Constitution means that the bylaws would be included. Is that what you mean? Indeed. While I remember it, I think Mr. Tony Chair asked this question as well. There's the spelling. Is there any difference between BY and BYE? Thank you, Chair, for remembering the question. For BYE and BY, according to our research, they carry the same meaning and the same legal effect. Well, indeed, under different jurisdictions, I think they have got a different nomenclature. Whether it is spelled BYE or BY, the general meaning is that individual professional bodies have certain internal arrangements. So that's not pertaining to a government department. When we drafted the bylaw, we did make reference to other professional bodies. Say, for example, that for the landscape architects, the Hong Kong IA, etc. So when a professional body becomes a statutory body, they often use the spelling BYE. Ms. Kong, well, you talked about the professional bodies. Did they have a constitution and a bylaw? But what about their ordinance? Do they only refer to constitution only? Indeed, Ms. Kong, when we drafted the bill, we made reference to other examples in addition to the three that I mentioned. I did look up the one pertaining to the Hong Kong IE. The older version talked about the constitution, and then for Hong Kong IA, the constitution is mentioned in their ordinance. They've also got a bylaw. Well, it's for their good. Time and again, constitution is referred to in the bill. Say, for example, members under constitution. But the bylaw also mentions the membership. So I just hope that they won't be encountering any difficulties. Earlier on, I talked about the council. Professional bodies usually talk about the council of the body. Here you talk about the general council. I think both mean the same. Is your choice, or is it because you want to adopt the name in your constitution? While other professional bodies, usually they just call the council rather than a general council. Is that what you mean? Yes, indeed. Please continue. President means the person referred to as president of the institute in Section 7 and any person acting as president in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Please continue. Member. Member means a person whose name is currently included in the register. Institute means the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals incorporated by Section 3. Mr. Andrew Lam. Member. You talk about is, whose name is currently included in the register. How do you update your register? How often do you update your register? By having currently in the Chinese version, 因时. I think it's a bit different from what it is like elsewhere. If you don't have the Chinese characters 因时, then it means something different to me because it may vary from one day to another. I just wonder if there is an impact on the comprehension of any reader of this bill. Mr. So, please. We did consider this matter when we drafted the bill. Let me cite an example. We did make reference to many ordinances. There is CAP 1162 for the Hong Kong Institute of Landscape Architects. They also talked about a member means a person whose name is currently included in the register. Transitional provisions are involved. Now, by enacting the bill, it means that those on the register will become the members of the incorporated body. And after that, should there be changes to the membership, our register will be updated. This is a technical provision that is at the moment that we become incorporated, all the members will become members of the incorporated body. Well, there are many different approaches. I won't say that it is right or wrong, absolutely. You gave us an explanation. To me, I think to play safe, it is better for you to have the first list of members upon enactment of the bill. And then you may say clearly in the Constitution that you will update your membership or your register from time to time. You can take my suggestion as merely a suggestion. It's up to you to consider the impact. So it is a suggestion. What is your view, Mr. Zheng or Mr. So? Well, regarding the membership register, we update it quite quickly. As soon as the General Council agrees, then we update the register almost instantly, say for example in a day or two's time. So Mr. Lam has given you his suggestion. I think the Hong Kong IQEP is saying that they've made reference to the practice of many other professional bodies. That's the same wording that they have adopted. That is, it is a matter of being applicable before and after the transition.
For members' information, we made reference to the practice of the Hong Kong IE as well as the Institute of Architects, that is CAB 1148 and 1147. The wording adopted in these two ordinances are similar. Any follow-up questions from Mr. Andrew Lam? No, I respect the autonomy of the Institute. Thank you. Please carry on. We now come to part 2, that is page 10 of the Chinese version of the Blue Bill. Clause 3. Incorporation of Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals. Clause 3, subclause 1. Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals is to become a body corporate and is to be known as Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals, which in that name is to have perpetual succession and is to be capable of suing and being sued, and subject to this ordinance, of doing and suffering all such other acts and things as bodies corporate may lawfully do and suffer. Subclause 2. The Institute is to have a common seal which is not to be affixed except pursuant to a resolution of the General Council, and unless provided otherwise in the Constitution, in the presence of a member of the General Council and of the Secretary, or such other person appointed in his or her place by the General Council, each of whom is to sign his or her name. 3. Subclause 3. Any document purporting to be duly executed under the common seal of the Institute, authenticated in accordance with subsection 2, is to be received in evidence and is, unless the contrary is proved, to be considered as document so executed. I've looked at clause 3 myself. It is almost the same as that of other ordinances concerning other professional bodies. Please carry on. Page 10 of the Blue Bill, Objects of Institute. The objects of the Institute are as follows. Please refer to page 12, the Chinese text of the Blue Bill. Bracket A, to promote, develop, and maintain a qualification system for environmental professionals in Hong Kong. Bracket B, to meet the current and future environmental expertise needs of Hong Kong. Bracket C, to support the development of the environmental industry in Hong Kong. Bracket D, to maintain a register of suitably qualified environmental professionals in Hong Kong. Here I'd like to add one thing. Suitably qualified means, as mentioned by our president, it means that the relevant member has the relevant continuous professional development and has the relevant educational qualification and so on. And the register referred to here is the same as that referred to in clause 9. Bracket E, to promote continuous professional development of environmental professionals to meet the changing needs of the society and the environment. Bracket F, to facilitate the exchange of ideas, knowledge, and information between environmental professionals on current and emerging environmental-related challenges and risks, technologies, regulations, policies and stakeholder expectations by means of meetings or publications. We got a legal advice from the Secretariat of the Legislative Council. In order to ensure the consistency between English and Chinese text, we are going to add a few words here in the last sentence. We are going to add expectation of the relevant stakeholders to align the English and Chinese version. We accept this advice from the Legislative Council, and we're going to propose an amendment. So you're going to add the word expectations in the English text to align the Chinese and English versions. Is that right? Correct. Bracket G, to promote the advancement of environmental knowledge across different professional and industry sectors for the betterment of the environment of Hong Kong. Bracket H, to maintain the integrity and status of the environmental professionals and to represent them both to the public and to the government. Again, here we got a legal advice from the Legislative Council. We're going to add 其代表 in the Chinese text. It means its representatives. Bracket I, to provide links between industry and the local government bodies and other organizations to ensure that environmental professionals remain dynamic and relevant to both industry and the community. We're going to add a few Chinese words here in the Chinese version. 在行業和社區中, which means in the industry and the community. We're going to add 和相關性 in the Chinese text. To align the English and Chinese versions, which means relevant to both industry and the community in English. Can you repeat that? To provide links between industry and the local governmental bodies and other organizations to ensure that environmental professionals remain dynamic and relevant to both industry and the community. Any questions from members? Legal advisor, anything to add? As Mr. So said, as we looked at Clause 4, we saw that there were some inconsistencies between the Chinese and English version, which were pointed out by Mr. So just now. Bracket F, bracket H, and bracket I. The relevant amendments mentioned just now are points raised by us earlier. In relation to further legal or drafting issues, we have to look at the finalized version in order to offer our further advice or opinions. On the point about suitably qualified, I learned from the Member's Office of Dr. Low that there will be an amendment raised in relation to this provision. There will be clarification. I want to know if the Institute is going to amend this wording, suitably qualified. What legal advisor is saying is that you mentioned verbally just now that suitably qualified covers educational qualification, continuous professional development, and so on. Are you going to spell them out clearly in the bill so that people know what it means by suitably qualified? I thank the chairman for the suggestions. As mentioned, in relation to how a person can become a professional member of the Institute, which covers the attainment of continuous professional development as well as educational qualifications, we think it is more appropriate for us to include these detailed arrangements in the bylaws or the constitution. Any views from members? All right. I looked at the legislations for other professional bodies. For the objects of institute, there are always some wordings before the objects of the institute. Well, but I see that there are no such wordings before the sentence, the objects of the institute. If you look at the ordinances concerning the Hong Kong IE or the Institute of Architects, there are some wordings before the objects of the institute. We agree to the amendment. All right, perhaps you can propose the amendment after the meeting. There being no other questions in relation to this part, please carry on. Please refer to page 14 of the Chinese version, bracket J, to do all such other things as are incidental or conducive to the attainment of the above objects as the General Council may consider appropriate. Please continue. Clause 5. Powers of Institute. Subject to this ordinance, the General Council may, on behalf of the Institute, do all such things as are necessary for, or incidental or conducive to the better carrying out of the objects of the Institute, and in particular but without prejudice to the generality of this ordinance. I believe members have all read the Blue Bill. Perhaps you don't have to read out the provisions word by word. In relation to the powers of Institute, I would like to ask members if they have any questions in relation to this clause. I've looked at similar legislations concerning other professional bodies, and similar wordings are adopted in the other ordinances. Any questions from members? If not, we can move on to the other parts. Please refer to page 16 of the Chinese version. Clause 6, vesting of property. On the commencement of this ordinance, the Institute is to succeed to all property, rights, privileges, obligations, and liabilities of the unincorporated Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals. Yes, Mr. Orin Kong. Chairman, I have a suggestion for Clause 5, bracket H. The way it is written in Chinese now does not really align with the English version. The English version is simple. It basically tells you that the Institute may borrow money. It says the Institute may borrow money in such manner and on such securities or terms as the General Council considers appropriate. But for the Chinese version, it says, 以理事會認為適當或適宜的方式及抵押或條款借入款項. It doesn't really align with the English version. On what basis can the government borrow money? Well, this is set out in the English version, but I take issue with the Chinese translation. I feel that it doesn't really reflect the English version. I understand that for other professional bodies they adopt the same wording, but I do agree that the Chinese version doesn't accurately reflect the English meaning. Mr. So, when we drafted the bill, we drew reference from ordinances concerning the other statutory professional bodies. The powers that those professional bodies can exercise are similar to those of our institute. Therefore, when we drafted the Chinese version, we adopted the wording of the other ordinances concerning the other professional bodies. Ms. Doreen Con asked whether you would consider amending the Chinese text to make it clearer. But I guess according to your view, it is all right to adopt the same wording as that of other ordinances. Mr. Andrew Lam, I understand that you made reference to the ordinances concerning other statutory professional bodies. I'm a member of a professional body for a very long time, and I see changes in relation to the development of our professional institute. I'm speaking from my personal experience as a member of a professional body. If you can revise the wording to achieve a better result, well, I don't think it's necessarily for you to completely follow the wording adopted in other ordinances.
Please consider Mr. Lam's suggestions, because in any event you will be moving amendments. So please consider it to see whether you want to keep the existing wording or whether you want to change them. I'd like to thank the two members for their suggestions. Mr. Tony Chair, you didn't press it. Clause 5, powers of institute. I'm sorry. I've many meetings to attend. Chair, if you permit, I would like to seek a clarification. I asked certain questions earlier on. Some of them have been answered. We are now at the stage of cross-round cross-scrutiny. I do understand, Chairman, for bylaws, I think they have got different classes of members. And then it talks about continuing their professional practice, and they have got fellows, etc. In other words, if their members retire, the retired members may have to change the class of membership, right? But it seems that it isn't quite clear here. Mr. Chair. We don't actually make a distinction between retired or practicing members. If they continue to be involved or related to environmental services, we allow the membership status to be kept. But maybe in future we can consider creating or rather dealing with the retired professionals in our Constitution. Well, the Blue Bill talks about the members as well as the Constitution. We did mention whether the bylaws should be included in the bill. The answer given was that the Constitution already covers their internal guidelines, etc., etc. Here, for members, we only talk about member instead of different classes of member. Say, for example, whether someone has already retired. I think that should be governed by their constitution and internal guidelines, so they can make a decision as to the classes of membership and whether someone can remain on the register despite having retired. Yes, I appreciate that, Chair. I think the bill does mention the Constitution. And they would follow the Constitution. I found that the Constitution includes the bylaws, and therein they have got different classes of membership, like founding fellows, etc. The two of them requires that they should be continuing their professional practice and development. I think that's one of the requirements. So among members, there are a number of different classes of membership. So it appears to me that this is unclear. Someone may be a founding fellow or a fellow, But then, as time passes, this person may no longer continue with the practice. I think you want to check whether they continue with the practice before you would grant the membership. So I hope you will pay attention to this bit. What about if someone challenges, say for example, if a member is queried as to whether he's continued with his practice, and will this member lose his membership? Mr. Zhang, I just checked whether my understanding is the same as Mr. Chair's. For the Hong Kong IE, we have only got membership as well as constitution, the two concepts. But then we have got fellowship in professional bodies like the Hong Kong IE. We do provide for different classes of membership. As to whether someone is still a qualified member, it will be determined by the Constitution to check if a person is still a qualified member. I want to know whether the Hong Kong IQEP wants to deal with it in a similar fashion. Indeed, similar. As I have explained, in our Constitution, we don't actually provide for a class of retired members. Perhaps we should consider this particular detail. That is, if someone no longer practices, we can try to see what to do with their membership. For professional bodies, they don't specify that you need to continue your practice before you can keep your membership, your qualification. Promotion, of course, can have a broad meaning. Say, for example, taking part in the work of the professional body or taking part in activities held by the professional body. But seldom would they write that into the bill. Well, whether we have bylaw or other codes or rules, they are not to be mentioned in the bill. The bill would only mention the Constitution. The Constitution will be amended by the General Council, and that would cover the continuation of the qualification of members. That's my understanding. Dr. Low, you took words out of my mouth. Well, at the earlier discussion, there was a sort of consensus. The purpose of the bill is to allow the institute to be incorporated. The Constitution will cover the bylaw, like in the case of many other professional bodies, that would facilitate the management instead of relying on the bill to manage the institute. Otherwise, the bill will go to many pages. For membership, we need to consider how one would lose the membership. So, Chair, thank you for steering the discussion. You are right in sharing your observation with us. Mr. Chair? Sorry, the speaker is off mic. I think we can go to part 4. That's why I'm concerned about the constitution of the institute. For you to become a professional body, your constitution will be given recognition in the bill, right? I will spend time on reading up the Constitution. You may say that it will be left in their hands, but for us to endorse it in the bill, and for this to be a professional body, you have to give the public the impression that you have given it thorough consideration. That's my suggestion, because after all, in answer to my questions, the administration has said that there won't be any changes. I think the institute has to work even harder. Now, when you become an incorporated body, you have to enhance the status of your members. You have to work harder. The government has already said that the government won't be interested in making any changes. I think many professional bodies would like to enhance their legitimacy. That's why I would like to point out the lack of clarity in your constitution. I'm sorry for that. Now you were on clause 5, but it seems that I'm jumping to part 4. Well, Mr. Chair would like the Institute to consider his view. I think he has good intentions. My view is that we shouldn't make an amendment here, because once we are to include the Constitution in the bill, as Dr. Low has said, it will be an endless exercise. And then the original objective of the bill is to give you the legal status. Moreover, we are soon going to talk about the powers of the Institute, and that would cover the amendment of the Constitution. As to whether they have to come back to us or not, it depends on the scope to be covered. If you go to talk about the different classes of members, and you start to include disciplinary matters, well, in fact, they are in the hands of the General Council. The General Council will drop the rules and regulations, and they are not in the bill. For that reason, it's good for us to fine-tune and improve the bill, and it's not limited to this institute. Similar bodies encounter the same issue. For the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors, their ordinance would only mention the Constitution and membership. Other things are left in the hands of the Institute to make sure that their professional status will be maintained. So, Mr. Chair made a proposal. It's up to the Institute to consider it. But I don't hear any sort of request to include the Constitution or the membership qualification in the bill. I agree with you. I want to ask a question concerning clause 5. Under 5H, the Institute may borrow money. My understanding is I want to know about the liability on the part of individual members. Dr. Low. For clause 5, powers of the Institute. Well, this is to empower the Institute to do things like employing staff, hiring or renting a place, like any companies. Now, if the Institute does have to borrow money, there's the procedures that have to be gone through, and whether members have liability, well, indeed, that will be taken care of in the Constitution or the bylaws, and they are not set in stone. For the Hong Kong IE, if you want to amend the Constitution, there's no need to come to the LegCo, because it's not the ordinance. At the AGM of members, they can seek to amend the Constitution. This is quite common, so I don't think we should dwell on the details. Chair, I was merely making a suggestion. I wasn't asking for an amendment. Please be clear about that. Well, recently, I was interested in the company registry, and if you borrow money, then there is the question of liability. Since we are deliberating the bill here, I think I'm bound to share my observation. Of course, I'm not seeking to amend the blue bill. I merely want to float the idea when you want to give powers to the institute. This is the clause. When the power is to be exercised, I'm sure the institute will be very cautious. I think the company registry would also remind you to pay attention to this factor. Well, let me say that I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes. I think the following clauses are rather simple, roughly speaking, so let's try to cover as much as possible. Members can stay, right? Thank you.
Representatives from the Institute and the government, would you be able to stay in the meeting for another 15 minutes? Yes, Mr. Andrew Lam. Even if we extend this meeting by 15 minutes, we won't be able to complete the scrutiny of the bill, I think. As we scrutinize the bill, we will also confirm the existing constitution of the Institute. I have looked at the constitution myself, but to play safe, I think we do need to look at the constitution because it has to do with the future powers of the Institute as well as the General Council of the Institute. I'm not raising any objections here. I just feel that we have to look at the Constitution before we discuss the powers to be conferred to the Institute. Of course, it is up to you, Chairman, to decide whether we need to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. I'm just saying that we will look at clauses concerning the powers of the General Council as we proceed with the scrutiny of the bill. I wonder if we should wait for the Constitution. While I, in principle, agree with Mr. Andrew Lam, it's not that we need to finish the scrutiny of the bill within 15 minutes. I do think that we have to look at the Constitution as well. We may have to leave time to do that. Ms. Doreen Kong, I just have something to add. I understand the point raised by Mr. Tony J about the powers of the Institute to borrow money. And point 10.2 of the Constitution of the Institute, it touches on the point that if the Institute has to be liquidated, all the properties and assets of the Institute will be distributed among members. And this is set out in the Constitution of the Institute, which is a similar practice as that of other professional bodies. Any response from the Institute in relation to what Mr. Andrew Lam and Ms. Doreen Kong said? Yes. It is set out in the Constitution how we will deal with our properties in case of liquidation. Now we come to Clause 6, vesting of property. Mr. Albert So briefly walked us through this part of the bill. Any questions from members? If not, we will come to Part 3 of the bill. We have 15 minutes. I wonder if we can finish Part 3 within 15 minutes. Mr. So, please refer to page 18 of the Chinese text of the Blue Bill, Clause 7, Establishment of General Council, bracket 1. There is established a General Council to be known as the General Council of Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals. Bracket 2. At the commencement of this ordinance, the General Council is to consist of the persons holding the offices of President, Senior Vice President, Junior Vice President, Honorary Secretary and Honorary Treasurer of the unincorporated Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals immediately before the commencement of this ordinance, and all other persons who were members of the General Council of the incorporated institute before the commencement of this ordinance. Bracket 3. The persons specified in subsection 2 are to hold office until the election of officers and members of the General Council at the first annual general meeting of the institute or otherwise in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chairman. As I said, we have to go back to the Constitution. Understand that the way the bill is drafted now is the same as that of other ordinances. According to the bill, the General Council will be given absolute powers. We have to look at the Constitution in order to understand what powers the General Council will be given. We have to look at the Constitution to understand how elections will be carried out. So we have to look at the bill and the Constitution side by side. Without the Constitution at hand, we have to rely on the representatives from the Institute to understand the powers of the Council. A very clear suggestion from Mr. Lam, that is, we have to prudently consider all relevant documents, including the Constitution, as we scrutinize the bill, to make the scrutiny process more complete. I suggest that after we have finished Clause 8, we should conclude this meeting. This is because Part 4 concerns membership and Constitution. As mentioned by other members, there is a need for us to look at the provisions of the Constitution to understand the membership. And these are all related to Part 4 of the bill. So I suggest that we conclude this meeting after we have finished the scrutiny of Clause 8. Mr. So, Clause 8, please. Thank you, Chairman. Clause 8, Powers of General Council. The management of the Institute is to be vested in the General Council, and all the powers of the Institute are to be vested in and exercisable by the General Council except so far as this ordinance or the Constitution otherwise requires. Any views from members? This is drafted with reference to the ordinances concerning other professional bodies. Well, but as mentioned, if we can improve certain wordings, we should do it. We should not simply copy the wording of other ordinances. Mr. Orin Kong, I looked at information about the General Council of the Institute online. I don't know if the information provided online, and I see that you don't have senior vice chancellor or chairman. You only have vice chairman. Does this align with the Constitution? Well, Ms. Kong does care about the details. We do not have the position of senior vice president currently. Perhaps we may make amendments to these provisions. Do you mean you're going to add certain wording to the Constitution, or are you going to amend the bill? Perhaps we will amend the Constitution. So you will keep senior vice president in the bill. All right. Ms. Andrew Lam. I have the same question as that raised by Ms. Kong. We do have to look at the Constitution side by side with the bill. Otherwise, we will notice a lot of discrepancies between the bill and the Constitution. So, Chairman, I do think that we need to have the Constitution at hand in order to proceed with the scrutiny of the bill. The Institute just now said that it would provide the Constitution after the meeting. Please provide other documents that you think are of reference values to us as well. This will facilitate the scrutiny of the bill. Chairman, I have to emphasize one point. There are things covered by the bill that are not included in the Constitution, like the example raised just now concerning the position Senior Vice President. We shouldn't give the Institute the flexibility to decide on either revising the bill or the Constitution. I hope the Institute understand that we are taking a very prudent approach here. We want to ensure that each provision in the bill will achieve its effect. So the Constitution is crucial. A lot of the questions raised just now concern how the Institute will be able to maintain its professionalism. Well, we don't have enough time to complete the scrutiny of the bill. We will have to hold another meeting. We will work out a time with members after the meeting. In the meantime, would the Institute please prepare all the documents of reference values as well as the Constitution so that members can learn more about the Institute. And in the next meeting, we will look at the Constitution as we scrutinize the bill. We'll also look at the amendments proposed. So let's schedule a time for the next meeting later. The Secretariat will invite public submissions. It will invite any written submissions from the public in relation to the bill. Next item, AOB. Nothing under AOB. Meeting adjourned. I thank government representatives as well as representatives from the Institute to attend the meeting.